Just before I get started, I want to say what a real honor it is to be part of a real diverse lineup here at ThingMonk, and alongside some very outstanding speakers, many of whom happen to be women. And you know what they say about true gender equality is not about having the next Steve Jobs who's a female, but it's about having lots and lots of mediocre female middle managers. So in the interest of true equality, I'm going to give a mediocre speech. Just kidding, it's going to be awesome. So. There are no mediocre talks at ThingMonk. It's before Fintan throws me off the stage. Okay. So let's talk about diversity. I'm Tracy Miranda, and the Internet of Things is set to be transformational technology. It's going to change our societies, not just where we park at the airport, but how we cut our grass, how we live our lives, even how we play with our children. But the question I'll pose to you is, well, how do we make sure that the Internet of Things is solving problems not just for the elite, not just for a small percentage of society, but for all people in society? And we have some cautionary tales from other industries. So genetics, there's a great TED talk by Keolu Fox in which he talks about the problems of, most genome studies are done with genes of European descent, which represents a really small proportion of the global population. And this affects healthcare and it affects drugs. So in many ways, I find this really shocking. But what can we do about the Internet of Things to not go down the same path? And I think the answer really lies in building diverse communities, having people from all walks of life participate. So I've been in tech for 15 years, and I'm sad to say in that time it hasn't really changed in terms of the inherent diversity in number of women and minorities. So we're saying, how can we change perceptions and how can we gain critical mass? And we have to do things differently from what we've been doing for the past 15 years. Now, one thing that has been shown to work is actually having diversity champions. So one thing I'd like to ask today is for everyone here in the audience to cast themselves in the role of diversity champions for your communities, right? Whether it's your workplace or your university or even virtual, even your Slack channels, see yourselves as the people who are going to bring about this change. And these 7 habits are all about that. It's not meant to be prescriptive, but it's more about high-level ideas and principles that we can adopt and take to our communities and look to bring about a change. Because we're saying the more diverse our Internet of Things communities, then the more secure and resilient our communities will be. So we just have to get everyone involved. And it's really looking at some patterns from other communities and in some cases some anti-patterns about what we can do and some thoughts for you to take away. Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, the first habit is to be self-aware, and this is about saying, well, who's in your community, and importantly, who's not in your community? And in another way, it's saying, can we check what privileges people in the community have to be members of that community? So Facebook has a diversity problem. At their Menlo Park headquarters, they have about 5,500 employees. And of those, 81 are black, so that's less than 2%. And as it turns out, earlier this year in February, Mark Zuckerberg was actually reprimanding all the employees there because they'd been, well, some of them had been going around graffitiing Black Lives Matter slogan. Now, Black Lives Matter is the rights movement that started in the US to get the justice that the black community deserves. And some employees in Facebook who have the privilege to not suffer from the issues took offense at that slogan, and they sort of read it as only Black Lives Matter or Black Lives Matter more. And there's a real sort of lack of empathy, and even after Mark Zuckerberg told them off, it just continued to happen. So we don't want our communities to get to that sort of toxic state. So that leads us to the second habit, which is about promoting shared values in our community. Okay, I have 2 kids in car seats, and sometimes I even let them out. And they go to the school, and they have something that they call their values-led education. And I was actually pretty skeptical about it when I first heard about it. And the idea is that they'll have a value of the month, and it will be things like self-control, positivity, or courage. But the neat thing they do is that they embed that throughout the curriculum and throughout the learning. And I found this out one day when I was a bit impatient with the kids and sort of yelling at them to hurry up and get a move on. And my 6-year-old, he sort of turns to me and he goes, "Mom, you're really not showing the value of patience." And yeah, that sort of stopped me in my tracks and really got me to think about that. But yeah, I find it incredible how they've managed to get a common language throughout the school, so the kids are saying to each other, you know, don't give up, show the value of determination, and things like that. And I think in tech for a long time we said tech is all about tech, and we've ignored the people in tech and all the baggage they come in with. But that's starting to change, and it was really good to see Fintan promote the code of conduct. So in our tech communities, we're now starting to promote respect in the Eclipse community I'm part of. I'm proud to say we have a community code of conduct. So anyone here involved with putting together a code of conduct for their communities? Yeah. Anyone involved with enforcing that code? Yeah, actually I'd love to hear some stories about that. But yeah, it's important we weave these through our communities and, more importantly, enforce them. And what I'd be quite interested in any thoughts as well is not just promoting respect, but how can we promote things like empathy and tolerance and patience? Okay, habit 3, learn and grow together. Even things we take for granted, like gender, are changing rapidly, so we need to kind of learn about these and grow as communities. And I'll just pick up the pace here. And be open and inclusive. Openness is about transparency and accountability, and inclusivity is about real inclusion. And some communities like the public speaking Toastmasters are really good at doing that. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're actually going to learn and grow together. And to be open and inclusive, I'm going to get some of you involved, right? So we're going to play a game, a quick game. Anyone like games? Ooh, it's better than deafening silence. Okay, so the story goes there was a professor who used a waste paper basket and some paper to teach his class about privilege. And we're going to create that, or recreate that here, but we're going to do it ThingMonk style. So I thought what we could have instead was maybe have a connected privilege bucket. But if it turns out, if you want to have something you can program over Bluetooth Low Energy and do updates over MQTT, well, A, don't leave it to the last minute. B, don't use cheap sensors. And C, don't use Windows. So, didn't really. But anyway, Alex is going to help me out. And instead, what we have is the privilege bucket with stickers. So, let me explain what we're going to do, and then I'm going to get some people involved. So, all you have to do, if you're lucky enough, just have it in. Okay, I'm going to get a few people to throw a couple of balls at the bucket. And all they have to do is to get one in the bucket. And to make it interesting, let's say if you get your ball in the bucket, you get lunch. Yeah, is that okay? And if you miss, then you don't get lunch, just to make sure you really want it. So. But the catch is, you have to stay in your seat to do it, right? So, let's give you a couple. I'll give you a couple. And we're going to give some people down here. Maybe some at the back. Right. All right, for fun, we'll see if the tech is cooperating, but... Right, okay, Rachel, go ahead first. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, well done, you get lunch. Who's next? You want to go ahead? Yeah, well done, you get lunch. Ben? Oh. Yeah, we've got lunch. Okay, what about our folks at the back? Can you have a go? Yeah, no luck. Sorry, no lunch for you. Don't hit people, please. And what about right at the back? Oh! Come in. Right, that was amazing. Please, let's have a hand for them. And can I get everyone to come up here, actually, who threw a ball? So everyone who got one in, stand over there, and people who didn't get one in, let's have you stand on that side. So very quickly then, well done. Was that difficult?
Not at all.
Great. And I really liked your technique. You sort of leaned forward. Would you like to write a book about that?
I'd love to.
Yeah. Okay, well done for you. Now, those who didn't did you get one in? No. Do you not like lunch?
I don't like lunch, no.
And what about you? Were you not trying hard enough?
As usual, no. Just hopeless with balls.
Right, and you really almost got close, but not quite. And do you think there's a reason for that?
Didn't try hard enough.
You didn't try hard enough. Okay. All right. Let's thank everybody for participating in that. You can have a seat. Okay, I think, so the point of this exercise is really the bucket represents an opportunity. It might be a job, it might be some investment, but the privilege comes in with how close you are to the bucket. And in this case, we can see very obviously that people at the back of the room are at a significant disadvantage. But when you're throwing things into the bucket or trying to achieve your goal, all that you're focused on is what's between you and the bucket. And it's really unfair for the people at the back, but unless the people in the front sort of turn around and acknowledge there's a difference, then it's almost like, well, why is he moaning he didn't get it into the bucket? It was pretty easy. So giving everyone a voice is, in some cases, it's speaking up, like I've had to learn to do, or shutting up, like James has had to learn to do, or advocating for others. And acknowledging bias is our sixth habit, and the idea there is to say, well, let's look around and let's be honest about having perspective on the different problems that people face and the things that might prevent them from doing that. And one of the blind spots that human beings really have is to do with environment. So psychologists call it the fundamental attribution error. And so one of the ways they'll demonstrate this is they'll take two sets of basketball players, equally good, and they'll have one set playing in a dimly lit gym and one set playing in a brightly lit gym. So the ones in the dimly lit gym will just miss more often. And if they ask people, which is the better set of basketball players, people will say, and they'll point to the ones in the second group, the ones in the brightly lit gym. Barely anyone says, oh, the environment is not right. And there's a thing about human beings where we fail to see the environment sometimes, and we want to attribute it to people. And I think sometimes I see that with women in tech, of people will say, well, you know, it's about that they can't do it, rather than saying, well, maybe the environment isn't quite right. So I think we need to acknowledge what biases are out there. And then once we do that, then investing in equality, fixing those systems, putting money and time into it. So just to use an analogy, with cycling, if you want to get everyone cycling and more people on the road, don't have this approach where for the most dangerous bits around roundabouts, you're kind of saying, well, we're going to put up some signs and then people will know how to navigate it. They'll have to figure it out, and we'll make a note if you're visually impaired, then, well, we don't really cater for you. But really, if we take a leaf out of somewhere like Holland's book, when they want to get everyone cycling, they'll invest in infrastructure, and that's the suspended bike circle that they have in Holland for crossing just like a really, really busy intersection. And so when you're thinking about investing in infrastructure in your communities, we want to be thinking, doing something like this. Okay, very quickly, I'm just going to do a shout out to, we're having an IoT workshop where we're trying to get people who wouldn't normally do stuff with the Internet of Things involved and get them started. So that's on Wednesday. We've had a tremendous response to this, so thanks to Jen for really helping pull this together. And more importantly, thanks to the Eclipse Foundation, Things Network, and Intel, who are investing in this and putting resources and money behind having more events that get people involved. So, the 7 habits of highly diverse communities. I'd like you to take these away, go back to your communities, think about ways we can make things change, and just get more people involved. So, thank you. Go forth and diversify.